Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session. I'm going to give you all a few moments to get settled and to connect to audio, making sure everyone can see and hear all the things that they need to see and hear today. From my view, everyone is connected to audio, so let's get started. So today we are focusing today's conversation on a career panel with guests from Allvue Systems. And it is hosted by Pencil. So here we go. A few items of housekeeping. We ask that you would please keep your display on mute. A Pencil staff member can unmute you if you want to share a question or a comment during the session. Please note that if you are choosing to use video, we can all see you as well as what is happening around you, so please be mindful of that. If you need to, put up a virtual background, get into a space where you can close the door and lock it, just so that you have that private space. We're asking that you would use the chat function to communicate with the host as well as participants during the session. And if you would like to speak aloud and ask your questions, that is absolutely available to you as an option. Simply raise your hands in the participants control, and the moderator is going to call on you by name, and then you will be unmuted. Our agenda for today is as follows. We're going to begin with introductions because that's always a great place to start. We're going to energize with an icebreaker. We're going to share an introduction of our panelists, and then we're going to engage in that career panel conversation as was promised at the beginning. Then we're going to reflect and close. Our learning objectives are as follows for today. They are for students to be able to gain insight and understanding into a range of career opportunities, for students to reflect on their personalities and prepare to apply it to career exploration, as well as for students to be able to assess potential career opportunities. For all of my guests, if you have not already done so, I wholeheartedly encourage you to grab a piece of paper and a pencil or pen, whatever your writing implement of choice is, so that you can take some notes during today's session, because I know you're going to get some really profound information. If you're more tech savvy and you want to open up another browser window, feel free to do that as well. Here we are, introductions as promised. Today's session is hosted by Pencil. Pencil is a New York City-based nonprofit whose objective is to open eyes, open minds, and open doors. This is primarily accomplished through partnership and engagement work where students and professionals work together at learning skills, ultimately with the goal of connecting students to success. That is why we're here today, and that is what we're hoping to do. So now that I've told you a bit about Pencil, I would love to know who is in the room. If you are a student, please go ahead and in the chat, write your first name, your last name, the school you attend, and your grade. If you are a volunteer, please write your first name, your last name, and your title at your company. As I've mentioned, all volunteers today are from Allvue Systems. So you don't need to write your company name. So easy. As you all are doing that, I will introduce myself and the person who is behind the controls for today's session. I'm Rashida Thomas. I'm the facilitator for today's session. My title at Pencil is Program Manager. We're also joined by Marina Karnofsky, a Senior Program Manager at Pencil. That is not her title. I'm so sorry. Marina, did you say your correct title? Sorry about that.
I manage the internship program with Pencil.
Yay, Marina. Thank you for that.
Today.
My mistake. That'll be fun later. We are also joined, as I've mentioned several times, by our friends at Allvue Systems. They are Brian Donaghy, who is Head of Quality Assurance, Taylor Fowler, who is the Front Office Product Owner, Alex Lambiot, I really hope I got that right today, who's the Solutions Engineer, and Raj Narayan, who is the Implementations Specialist. Brian, I believe you're going to tell us a bit about Allvue Systems today.
Yep. Hey, everybody. My name's Brian Donaghy. It's nice to meet you all, and we're excited to have you here today. So I'm never a fan of reading directly off of PowerPoint, so I'll just kind of explain a little bit of what we do. So Allvue Systems is a portfolio management and holdings company for private equity firms and hedge funds. And effectively what we do is connect data points to allow investors to make informed decisions about how they work and what they do.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Brian. So now that we know about Allvue Systems, just in a microcosm, we're going to learn much more about it in a few minutes, but let's kick that off with an energizer. So in the chat, go ahead and answer the question. What is your dream job? What is your dream job? I want to hear some amazing things. Did you want to be a geologist, an astronaut, a quality assurance specialist? These are just the things on the top of my mind, but I want to know, what is your dream job? Marina, would you be so kind as to share some of those responses from the chat?
Yes, we have a future baseball player, marathon runner, love to do that too, and running a nonprofit, so an executive director or president of a nonprofit. Kevin wants to be a strategist, brewery owner, definitely links back to that house purchase.
Good deal. Good deal. I love it. So different areas, different interests. That's fantastic. I love diversity of thought because you need different perspectives to do great things. So let's get into the sharing, the meat and potatoes of why we are all here today. So in this order, panelists, I ask that you would introduce yourselves by sharing your current role, which I've already said, but it's great to hear it from you, your hometown, your alma mater, as well as answering that question for the group, what was your dream job? So we'll start with Brian and then end down at Raj.
Awesome. Thank you. So my current role is the head of quality assurance. So as part of that, we test all of our software and make sure that it works and that our customers are happy with it. In my hometown, I'm from originally El Paso, Texas, but I spent most of my life growing up in Nashua, New Hampshire. My alma mater is Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. It's an engineering school in upstate New York. And I think for a while, my dream job was to be a doctor. I love bones. I've broken over 15 bones, so that kind of drew me into osteopathy or orthopedic osteopathy. Yeah, that's right. And yeah, that's me. Taylor, I think you're up next, buddy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Taylor Fowler. I'm the front office product owner at Allvue. What that means is I am responsible for, I think it's about 6 now, different product modules. So the different components that we sell to our clients. I'm responsible for prioritizing and maintaining all of the work that goes into either adding new features or fixing bugs or defects that we find in older versions, and kind of organizing around what our salespeople and product managers think that we should be doing and what the priority of those items are, and communicating those out to our engineering team to actually build them. My alma mater is Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey. And my dream job, I think in high school and college, my dream job was building computer hardware. That's evolved a bit, and I put owning a brewery just because I'd like to do that someday, and I'm going to do that someday. It's in the 10-year plan. And
Taylor and I are gonna do it together.
Perhaps. And then I think Alex was next, but it might have been Rush.
Yeah, cool. I think I'm up. Cool. Hey, everybody. My name is Alex Lambiot. I'm a solutions engineer. So what that means is that basically I will work with our prospects, so not yet our clients on the sales side, help walk them through their business processes, what they're currently doing, their investment strategies, et cetera, and figure out how to marry that with our current solution and our current platform to figure out how we can solve their problems. My alma mater is Northeastern University in Boston, where I majored in industrial engineering with a business minor. And my dream job was that I always wanted to be a baseball player, and that was always my plan, to go to college to play baseball and see where that went. I certainly wasn't good enough to do that. I was okay, but I also ended up hurting myself, and it ended up being a blessing because the schools that I was looking at to go play baseball at were not nearly as solid academically as where I ended up going. So ended up being for the right reasons. Raj, I think over to you, buddy.
Cool. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I am a product specialist at Allvue. And so what that means is I work a lot with the various clients that our company has to kind of help build out different features for their product. I get to work a lot with Taylor's team to figure out what we can provide them, work with Brian's team to test out the different software that we build, and just kind of try to help them be able to do whatever they want with the software that we provide. I'm from Danbury, Connecticut, which is about an hour and a half outside of New York City. I went to Northeastern University as well with Alex. I studied computer science and business. And my dream job was to be a firefighter. I thought it'd be really cool to drive a fire truck, and I had a toy fire truck when I was a kid. So it was super exciting. And I think even now, that'd probably be a cool job to do. So if I could, I would be a firefighter with a part-time job being a tester at Taylor and Brian's brewery one day.
I love the teamwork that is continuing on with this brewery dream. It's going to be great. If you all get a good chef on staff who makes fantastic homemade pretzels, I'll be there, okay? Just for the pretzels. So thinking about your trajectories, all of you are from different places in the world, but you all have landed where you are right now. What roles have you held in your career, and how have they prepared you for your current positions? And anyone can feel free to jump in.
So I actually had a bit of a different path in my career. So I studied in college business management with concentrations in supply chain, business analytics, and management information systems. So I actually interned at a defense contractor doing supply chain and operations, where I was working on a factory floor, dealing with circuit cards and basically the process flow of getting a product from pieces to a finished F-35 wing. And so that is not necessarily what I, QA is not what I saw myself doing, but at the end of the day, QA is an analytical mindset. It's wanting to poke holes in things and kind of figure out what is, like, how the system works, why it works the way it does, and how you can break it. And breaking it's really the fun part of it. So it's definitely not what I initially thought I would be doing, but there's a lot of alignment between what I was doing and what I am now doing.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Brian. If none of you want to tackle it, I have a new one.
I'll tackle this one as well. So when I first graduated college, the year was 2008. We were in the middle of a relatively bad recession. It was really, really hard to get a job. A lot of the people that I graduated with ended up with probably some of the farthest from their dream jobs. So it was a really hard time. I had thankfully started interning my junior year of college at a company called Castle Integrations that was responsible for, they're a third-party help desk consultancy. So instead of having IT guys that sit in your company, you pay a certain amount, call up Castle Integration and say, hey, my internet browser isn't working, or my hard drive failed, I need a new one, stuff like that. So I had started interning there and ended up working there after I graduated, working on their ticketing system. So They had a piece of computer software that when somebody called into the help desk to complain about their laptop, we would log a ticket, we would assign it to the client. It handled billing, it handled contracts, it handled all sorts of different various business processes that you have when you're running that kind of company. I really took I had very, very, very little SQL experience, which is a programming language for getting data in and out of databases. But they asked, hey, does anybody have any SQL experience? We're trying to do this thing, write these reports. So I volunteered because I had some, not a whole lot, but I was willing to learn. And that kind of set me on this trajectory for more or less the rest of my career. Being able to apply knowledge to complex systems and complex problems is, I think, paramount to getting me where I am now. So really, it was kind of that raising my hand and volunteering that's kind of built out the rest of the 12 years of my career that's happened since then. I think that answered the
Very
question.
cool.
I don't know if I forgot a part.
No, that was awesome. And your statement about 2008 and what a tumultuous time it was leads me to my next question. We are in the midst of a global pandemic. Things are strange, and we are all meeting this way remotely because it's convenient, and also for the issue of safety. So how has your role changed since the move to remote work, and what has been helpful to you as you've made this adjustment? And I will target my good friend Alex for that question.
Yeah,
only because you have the Yankees penned up there. Go Yankees. Okay.
Go Yankees. So that's actually a great question. I actually recently transitioned roles, still at Allvue, but in probably February, March, I transitioned to this current role, which traditionally is very heavily focused on travel, going to prospects, meeting with them in person, demonstrating the product and working through their issues in person. Obviously, we can't do that right now. So the entire sort of concept of the job has shifted in a more virtual way. And all of our meetings, all of our demonstrations, everything are now via Zoom. And we had to relearn how to, as Taylor mentioned, those complex problems that we solve, we had to relearn how to articulate how we can solve those complex problems and confidently show them how our solution is the correct solution for them, et cetera, all virtually, which is a whole different animal. It's a totally different experience doing it via Zoom. So being able to adapt and learn new things quickly has been really important. And also trying to pick up small things here and there in terms of things that you've seen via other individuals running meetings, or just reading different tips on how to conduct yourself in a virtual environment have been really important, where if you can just surround yourself with all of this knowledge, even if you don't verbatim follow all of the advice you see, but pick up one or two tips here and there, it's really valuable, because then when you're going through these virtual meetings and you remember, oh, they can't necessarily always see me or always read my body language, and I can't read theirs, so I need to make sure I'm following up more candidly and making sure that everyone is aware of the context that usually maybe more subtle has been really important. So having kind of a library of tools to pick from that you've accumulated from doing research, preparation, seeing how other professionals interact and do things well has been really important. So that adaptability and that ability to take in all of these tools, to put them in your tool belt and then use later, has been a key to managing this kind of virtual and very different environment than it has been traditionally.
Thank you for that, Alex. Raj, same question to you.
Yeah, I think ever since we went on to like this virtual working environment, one of the biggest changes on top of everything that Alex described is that my team I'm on now is spread all across the US. So before, everyone was based in New York, but now my manager's in San Diego. We have a lot of team members in San Diego and Chicago, as well as one in Boston as well. So it's like getting used to working with a lot of new people that I didn't know before we made the transition to the virtual environment, and also a lot of people that work in a lot of different settings and have a lot of different skill sets that I might not have. So just getting used to the fact that, you know, you're meeting new people over Zoom, to just making sure that you get a good sense of like introducing yourself, making sure people know who you are and like what your interests and skill sets are so you can work together best. And also just being able to kind of get a good sense of what other people are doing and how you can work with them to like learn more from them. Because I think like my manager is someone that I had not interacted with at all prior to March when we went virtual, but he's been able to teach me a lot, and I've been able to like interact and work with him a lot to learn new things and like develop new skill sets. And I think doing that virtually just required a good focus on like who we were and what our interests were, and making sure we could sync up on what we wanted to do as the year progressed.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Raj. And to all of our guests in the virtual space with us, please feel free to add your questions in the chat. I have a lot of questions that I will ask, but your voice is very important, and we want you to feel participatory in this space with us. And while you're thinking of questions, I'll ask another one. And I'm going to start with Taylor. What is the biggest risk you ever took in your work, and what did you learn from it?
Oh man, that's a good one. Oof. So
You can totally punt, Taylor. You can punt.
No. I was just thinking through a list of relatively high risk items. Think about which one I'm going to talk about. But so I think the biggest risk that I took 9 years ago, I took an interview on my lunch break for this company back when there was, I think, about 70 employees. We're at over 500 now. But it was an interview in 600. 600. Sorry, thank you, Brian. It was a very small office and some very interesting people, and I wasn't dressed for the interview. I got the call from this guy who I'd been working with as a recruiter, and he said, "You should go. The CEO's there. You know, he wants to meet you." So I went, and I absolutely fell in love with the CEO and the product and the vision. And my wife and my relatively newly married wife and I left our Brooklyn apartment and moved to San Diego for 4 years. Definitely one of the bigger risks I've ever taken, just generally, not just professionally. But it ended up paying off. And I think there's certainly a little bit of, kind of follow your gut advice that I would give there. Obviously, it doesn't always work out for everyone. So I don't want to give that impression. Don't drop everything you're doing and move to the opposite coast on a whim. But, I felt like where I was at in my career and the passion of the CEO and the just the awesome product that they showed me in the interview, I was sold. I was just like, cool, let's do it. I'll move. And then San Diego was a really fun place to live for a few years.
Very cool. They have the best produce in San Diego. I went for the first time a couple years ago. You agree? You agree?
Yes, and you can't get it as good here.
Yep.
I can't. It ruined East Coast avocados for me.
Sorry, Taylor. Well, when we no longer have travel restrictions, you can head on back, take a visit, bring home some bushels for the rest of us. Brian, same question. Biggest risk. How did it work out?
There's two that really come to mind. So first was in high school. So my sophomore to junior year, I transferred high schools, and that was largely because I didn't feel like I was challenged. Like I was doing well academically, and I was playing sports and all this other stuff, but I was bored. And I had to leave all my friends behind. I transferred to a smaller school that wasn't as friendly, and large in part, I was pretty asocial and not super happy for the next 2 years. But ultimately, it got me into the college that I wanted to go to, and in the degree that I wanted to go to. So, and then the second one that kind of comes to mind as a result of that is I entered as biology. Like I said, I wanted to be a doctor, and I ran into the wall known as organic chemistry. And I just pretty much I worked in a lab. I loved it. I found, like I said, the numbers, data, analytics, that has always been fascinating to me, but I didn't love it enough to want to keep doing it for another few years past that. And then, with medical school or a grad degree or et cetera, et cetera. So against my will and, with my parents' guidance, I started to explore a switch over to business, which ultimately got me to where I am today. And, it's kind of a long path, but, I'm very happy where I am. And so definitely bigger risks, but well paid off.
So out for both you and Taylor, big risk, big reward. Like it. Sounds great. Raj.
Sorry, Rashida. Big calculated risk that a lot of thought went into, just to be crystal clear.
let's not get out of hand here, okay? There was calculations. I timed it. I planned it. I did salary projections, everything. Big calculated risk, big reward. Okay. Raj, you mentioned that you went to Northwestern as well. Did you know Alex when you were there?
So no, I actually met Alex and Taylor at a recruiting event for Allvue Systems in Boston. So that's where we met. And I think it was cool to meet someone that went to the same university, because he got to tell me what his experience was going from Northeastern and the specific programs they have to working at Allvue, and how the different things we learned applied there. But no, we didn't know each other prior to that day.
Well, then that doesn't segue well to my next question, but I'll ask it anyway. My next question is about networking, because I was hoping that you all were connected prior to, but you all seem to have a good rapport with one another now. So anyone feel free to answer the question, who is in your network and how do you use your network?
I can definitely take that one. So the prime example being the man on this call right here, Taylor. So previously I was part of the same team that Raj is on, and I was working more directly with clients. While I enjoyed that role, I felt that there were better opportunities, and, I wanted to kind of explore different options. And Taylor and I had always been friendly in office, and we actually built a relationship through an organization called Teals, which is through Microsoft, and I introduced Taylor to it. It's basically a high school computer science course where you teach high school computer science. And so we connected and were, acquaintances and eventually friends over the better part of 2 years. And eventually a role popped up on his team that I was able to, sort of apply for and get accepted to. And that actually kind of spread from there. So, as a result of being on Taylor's team, there was a sort of reorganization with the company, and then QA became its own group, and I was chosen to head up that group. So now, through knowing Taylor, I am in a position of senior leadership that was facilitated via him.
And I can talk about sort of a different side of that coin related to the Northeastern thing. So sort of maybe where you intended to go with that. But as I mentioned, I went to Northeastern. Raj did as well. I think I'm 1 year older, maybe 2 years older than Raj. But through Northeastern, I know a pretty good amount of people, and I was pretty well connected throughout kind of the local community. So when we were revisiting our college recruiting strategy, which is something that as a company we knew we needed to put a little bit more of an emphasis on during a certain point, I was able to leverage the connections I had at Northeastern. We kind of revamped our recruiting process and our job descriptions, all the things that go into how we attract college hires, and then working with Northeastern advisors, whether they're actual career advisors, whether they're point people that will put the job offers into an internal system Northeastern has, we were able to kind of leverage that to draw interest for that Boston recruiting event that we did that Raj attended. So Northeastern was one of a few different schools in Boston that attended that event, but by using my network of students that were still at Northeastern, of connecting me to their advisors, of talking to different academic and career advisors at the school, I was able to kind of build out, and we were able to become a lot more efficient with our recruiting process due to that extended network, even though they were maybe connections of people that I knew and not direct connections with myself. Having that ability to expand your network beyond just the individuals you actually know in person was a very valuable tool and really helped with that recruiting process for Boston, for other cities that we were recruited in. And that's kind of been, and that was at one point one of the primary ways that we recruited college hires, was obviously not just myself, but everybody expanding to their networks that they have beyond just their sort of smaller group of people.
Yeah, and I think to Alex's point, the extended network effect that came with this event was really big in like the way that I found out about it, because I think a friend of mine both heard of this event and knew Alex, and she was going to go and told me about it as well. And I didn't know anything about Allvue at the time, but I heard they had free food there, so I decided like it would be, you know, a worthwhile endeavor to join as well. And so through that like extended connection and the fact they reached out and like connected through the school to spread word about what this event was, and it was also cool to know that like alum from our school had gone there as well, so that it made you feel more comfortable as well learning about it and knowing that there's other connections that already existed. I think it made it easier to find out about this event and ultimately like attend and end up working here.
Thank you for that. And I very clearly remember those college days of free food. Yes, that's where I'm going to be, because that's where the snacks are. It's always a good time. But you've gotten a career out of it, Raj. So that's awesome. Allvue overall is, I guess I could categorize it as an information systems servicing company. Brian's agreeing with me. Awesome. But when you think about a company of that vein, you don't necessarily think about public speaking. But as we have you, all four of you here today, obviously public speaking is something that you all do. So besides forums like this, how is public speaking a part of your role? Public speaking and presentation a part of your role?
I can take this one to start. So especially in the world of Zoom right now, it's so important to be articulate internally and externally, because you want to make sure that everyone on your team understands what you're trying to say. If you're talking to an existing client or a prospect, you want to make sure that you're articulating what you're trying to say intelligently, and make sure that they're getting what you're saying. I think oftentimes you can be very eloquent and well-versed in public speaking, but if you're not making an effective point and your audience isn't getting what you're trying to say, it becomes less and less effective. So I end up speaking, like I mentioned, internally to my team. I have a team of 6 business analysts, internally to other teams across the organization, to ensure that, you know, we're all working together to accomplish, you know, a common goal across teams. Clients, you know, you always want to be polished and kind of put your best foot forward with clients and prospects. So public speaking is a super important soft skill. It's your face to the world. Not only that, but the better that you can articulate what's going on in here, the kind of more on a level playing field you are with your audience, right? If it's going to be something very formal and you can pick up on that and kind of make some adjustments to how you're speaking or what you're speaking about, that's super important. I think that's it. Anyone else, feel free to hop in and add to that if you want.
Yeah, I think that those are great points. I mean, for my role in particular, pretty much the majority of my work is public speaking to clients and prospects that I don't know. And those meetings that we have where we are presenting how we can deliver a solution to their oftentimes very complex problems, those could be demos and presentations with one or two individuals, again, from clients that we don't necessarily know, or there could be 40 people on the call. So being able to, as Taylor mentioned, articulate those complexities well and show and tell what it is you're trying to accomplish and get through to those different groups are really important. And then on the other aspect, which isn't necessarily as relevant now, but those recruitment presentations that we just spoke about, I think all of us have presented at those in the past, and being able to stand in front of a group and summarize your company and make it seem like a desirable place to work is a really important skill as well. So even if you're not doing a formal recruitment event, if you're going through those networking processes and talking to different people, being able to speak well and seem like you know what you're talking about is a really important skill, and something that does take time, but is especially important to work on as you progress through your career.
Practice, practice, practice. It's the only way you get good at it, I've found.
I agree. Awesome. So another question that might be of interest for our students in particular is, how can a student explore your industry? All of you are in this large company in very different areas of work, but how can they get some insight? Brian?
Putting me on the spot. I appreciate it. So I think that there's really a couple different areas that can be researched and developed to understand what the work that we do is. And I like to frame our work as the interface between business needs and technical requirements. So we're trying to convert what the business wants into executable code that does what they want. And large in part, we're replacing spreadsheets and manual processes to kind of streamline their business operations. And so, whether it be computer science, understanding the technical side, or researching finance, the business side. And then there's also areas of Scrum mastery or agile operations or even quality assurance. I think that there's the biggest thing to kind of understand with our area of business is the investments world, and that is one of the most complex and nuanced and regionally based subjects out there. Every country is different, and kind of how people do business in different parts of the world is incredibly diverse. And so with that, it's hard to say that any one area is good. And even coming into this role, I thought I had a good understanding of it, and I'm learning stuff every single day that kind of helps inform the big picture of how the world moves its money. And it takes many years to even get a core level understanding of all of the different pieces, and I don't even have that right now, and I've been in it for 5 or 6 years. So I think one of the things is always to remain humble and admit that you don't know things, and just be willing to research. And so like I said, finance, CS, but that's not to say that those are inclusive. People come from all walks of life, and I found that some of the best people I've worked with had no background in it, and they were able to pick it up and understand it. And so I think that it's important to remain open-minded when you approach it, but always do background research.
I think to just build on, sorry, Rashida.
No, Taylor, jump in.
I think just to kind of build on all the things that Brian said, I think in order to break into kind of like any computer science or finance kind of role, you really need it, or I should say, it really helps if you're interested in solving problems. At the end of the day, a lot of what you're doing in any computer science role and in most finance roles is you're trying to get to a solution. And there's about 1 million different ways that you could do it to get there. And finding the best way to do it is often I mean, like when I'm recruiting for new roles on my team, I'm less concerned with background. Obviously, for some roles, it's a big plus. But the main thing that I'm looking at when I interview candidates is, are you interested in solving problems, and how do you solve problems? Do you take a kind of like methodical approach, or is it, kind of throwing stuff up at the wall, seeing what sticks? And then, yes, I'll leave it there.
It's a good place to leave it. Raj, I don't want you to feel left out, so I'm coming for you now. But the three of you, other three, feel free to jump in. What are the most essential skills that you need for your role, and how did you develop them, and how do you develop them? Is it an ongoing process? Is it one and done? Essential skills, Raj. Take it away.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for the challenge question. I think there are a lot of different skills that we get to use in our day-to-day job. I think there's some like coding skills. There's some that tie to like knowledge of finance maybe, but those are, like Taylor was alluding to, kind of the minority. I think the biggest thing is like the ability to learn and the ability to kind of be ready to focus and like work with other people to develop out a solution, or like to work with a client to develop out a solution. And those are kind of more vague and abstract, I think. So it's hard to know like how to learn those, because there's not like a class on how to learn per se. But I think you kind of just develop those in time, working on like group projects maybe in your school, or getting to try out like other jobs, even if they're in like a completely different field, or even just when you start the job itself. I think going back to like that initial recruiting event where I first like met Taylor and Alex and learned about this job, there are a lot of things that we work on, like SQL or some of the more in-depth finance elements that I didn't really know at all at the time. And some of them I was able to study and like work on before joining, and a lot of them I was able to build on as well after getting into the role and like working with my team or my manager or other people at the company. So I think it's really just like making sure you have an interest in learning like what the job and like the role are focused on, and also being able to like work with others and be focused and motivated on it. And then as long as you're ready to do that, I think there are a lot of people that are willing to help you, and a lot of good resources both online and like in person that you can make use of to build out those skills.
I think another thing that I've really had to leverage with my role as well is giving and receiving feedback. So I've learned a lot about what I call the compliment sandwich, which is, you say something positive, you say something constructive, and then you follow it up with something positive. And, with managing people and working with developers, you want to articulate a common goal. You want to, show that your desire is the same as theirs. Everybody wants, the project or the objective to be complete. And so it's not you coded this wrong or you put the wrong information. It's okay, this information is incorrect. How do we solve it? In conveying information in the right tone so that people see that you are trying to accomplish, a common goal.
That's awesome. Compliment sandwich. Back to food. Food is key. Sorry. I am full of jokes. So we are winding down on time. So once again, if you are in the audience and you would like to ask a question, please put it into the chat. A question that I have for all four of you, and I will start with Alex, and we'll go Alex, Taylor, Raj, Brian.
Saving the best for last, I see.
Obviously. What is the advice that you would have wanted to receive when you were younger? Or if you don't like that question, what is the best advice you would give to a young person?
Rashid, I think we have a question from Devon in the chat too. I don't know if we want to throw that into.
Awesome. We'll do his question after this one. Stop trying to avoid the question, Taylor. Alex is ready.
So I think that, and this is something that I've tried to do as much as I can, but in terms of advice that I would either give someone younger or a younger self, because it's essentially the same advice, is to try out as many things as you possibly can. So this has been my first career since I've graduated, but Northeastern's unique in that we have what is called a co-op program, and it's essentially 3 6-month internships where you're working full-time during that span. Essentially what that means is you get 3 flavors of entry-level jobs. So although this is my first career, I've worked in a full-time capacity in a few different places. And one of those was a manufacturing company, which is basically a factory, kind of similar to where Brian worked. Another was an actuarial job working for John Hancock, the insurance company. My last was at Bain Capital, which is more so on the finance side, more aligned with what our current team does. But I've also worked on a farm. I've worked in retail. Like, I've tried to get exposed to as many different work environments as I possibly could. One, because from a career standpoint, I never knew what I wanted to do. Obviously, I mentioned I wanted to be a baseball player, but most kids want to have aspirations that they can't physically achieve because they don't have the ability to do so. So from a career standpoint, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I wanted to try out a lot of things, and I wanted to get different types of experience that would then eventually, almost by process of elimination, lead me down the path that would be best suited for me. But the other thing that does is it teaches you how to interact with a very wide variety of people. So when I was on the farm in the mountains in North Carolina, most people never went to college. Most people didn't understand anything about what a city was like. It was a very different type of people than when I was at Bain Capital in Boston, which was a very different group than the factory workers in Rhode Island at my first co-op. So being able to be exposed to individuals from all walks of life with different career aspirations and ways that they think about their lives has been really important. And I would say not just from a career standpoint, but just in life, that's probably been one of the most beneficial factors in my life up to this date.
Thanks for that, Alex. That was very, very insightful. I believe Taylor was next.
I am, and I was so in agreement with Alex that I forgot what the question was. Just real quick.
Best advice that you would give to your younger self, you would have wanted to receive when you were younger, or best advice that you could give to a young person, given your own experience?
Yes. Authenticity is super important, and I wish that my younger self would have been a little bit more authentic and honest, not only with himself, but also with his coworkers. A lot of times I would find myself saying, hey, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll take this on, in an effort to kind of seem like a model employee. And most of the time that ended up working out, but it resulted in a lot of late nights, a lot of missed sleep. I think it's important to be authentic with yourself and authentic with your coworkers. And that is my number one piece of advice. My second piece of advice would be as empathetic as possible. Try to put yourself in the shoes of the other person that you're working with or talking to or waiting on something for. That will help you go a long way. And I think it's probably one of the keys to being able to move up into more of a managerial role.
Thanks, Taylor. Raj?
Yeah, I think if there's one piece of advice I could give my younger self, it would be to forget the concept of failure or the idea that there's just one path to success. I think when I was younger, I was under the impression that, there were certain things I needed to do to achieve this goal I had set for myself 20 years into the future. And that if I didn't get that, I would be failing. Or, if I was working even on a school project and it didn't go exactly as planned, that might be considered a failure. But I think in hindsight, there were a lot of changes to that original plan I might have set out for myself at the start of college or at the end of high school or whenever. But all of those changes and new opportunities, I think, were a chance to learn and improve myself or develop new skills or realize that there are other things that I'm interested in as well as what I had initially thought of. And there are other times too where I might have thought I had failed in like getting a job or like in getting the perfect grade in a class or something. But regardless, I think if I like didn't get a job but I still interviewed for it, that's an opportunity to learn, or it'd be an opportunity to eventually do another role that I think was better suited for me in the end. And even in school, like I would learn regardless of what the end result was, I think. And just learning that would mean less pressure on myself and more openness to like new opportunities. And I think that's what one piece of advice I wish I gave myself in the past.
Thanks, Raj. And Brian, last but not least. You're muted.
So for advice that I would give to my younger self, this is a tough one. I think the biggest thing that Taylor said is authenticity as well. I think that, I really tried to figure out what other people wanted as opposed to what I wanted. And it took me a lot of time in developing and understanding myself to get to the point where I was confident enough to say, yes, this is what I want. And so with that, I think that the second element to this is, as Alex said, be willing to try anything. I interviewed to over 100 jobs my senior year of college and was just shotgun blast. It was like, wherever it'll take me, wherever it goes, I've got, nothing holding me back. So let's try for Nebraska or, Britain or anywhere. And so keeping that open mind and, being willing to step out of your comfort zone.
Thanks for that, Brian. You're just brave and bold as I know you to be. So it's so good to get that confirmation. We have a question from someone on our social channels. Do any of you have networking tips for remote internships in this brave new world?
So one thing I would say is they're also figuring out the remote internships as well, as we're trying to determine our internship program and what that will consist of and everything like that. The biggest ways to get internships, connect through your college, look for potential job boards. But outside of that, always research the companies that you want to get involved with. Research your interviewer if you get an interview. And then work through your common social networks. So talk to your school advisors, talk to, family friends, talk to, the local, like the DOE, the NYC DOE has, I'm sure, a lot of resources for it as well. So leveraging online resources, being cognizant that everyone is also in a similar boat. And, I think approaching it with that, where it's, everyone has accommodations that we're all making right now and, kind of keeping that in mind.
One thing I'll add to that, randomly messaging people on LinkedIn is not a way to get a remote internship. 100%. So if anybody gives you that advice, they are way very wrong.
Way very wrong. Okay, I love it. Our final question coming from the chat roll is, how has mentorship played a role in either your education or career paths? And how have you cultivated your mentors? Does anyone have a mentor?
I can take this one.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
So when my second boss at my first job, we really kind of just made a personal connection. He was a super nice guy. He had a lot of experience in just kind of like project management, and I did not. And he really, we would go through this exercise of a one-on-one. We would meet once a week for 15 minutes to talk about the work that I was doing, the work that I was going to do, and just kind of like how I was doing. And during those one-on-ones, we kind of just developed this rapport of me asking, John, how can I do better? What can I do better? Do you have any, advice or methods, or really just asking him a lot of questions. And he's a guy who liked to talk a lot. I inherited that from him a little bit, but that relationship grew and continues to grow. I still reach out to him, probably once every couple of months. Every opportunity that I have had where we were trying to hire somebody who's in his current role, I've always reached out because I wanted him to work where I'm working. But I think really it's that personal connection that we had, and a kind of desire to do the same thing. Take a methodical approach to getting things done and getting things done better and improving process, that really helped bring us together. And then over the years, really just coming to him when I need a bit of advice, or even just reaching out, personal connection. Hey, how's it going? How's your family? Kind of thing, is how I've cultivated it.
Thank you for that, Taylor. Well, we are at the 1 o'clock hour, and I know that time just really and truly flew. Pencil is always interested in learning what you all thought of our session, so please follow the link in the chat and complete that survey. I want to thank all of you for being on today's career panel. Brian, Taylor, Alex, Raj, it was truly a pleasure. I encourage all of you all to follow Pencil on social media. They are always doing very interesting things and connecting you with great professionals like the 4 we had today from Allvue Systems. We look forward to connecting with you all in future events, and I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Brian.
Okay. Just us 3.
Stop recording, please.
Did that do it? No.